The Full Melt Show is intended for a mature audience. It contains adult themes, adult content, and sometimes adult language. Listener discretion is advised.
It's the Full Melt Show.
Are you high? What are you talking about?
This is the Full Melt.
Give me a break. The Full Melt Show. A marijuana discussion about news, culture, politics, and lifestyle. FullMelt.com. Toll free. 844-420-TALK. 844-420-TALK.
You can always tell when spring comes. When the days get longer. We're so used to it being dark in the studio come showtime. Now it's bright as the day is long. I mean, it's blinding in here. It's funny because in the fall, the sun comes into the studio here and literally blinds me. It's like, oh, right at the beginning of the show, I can't see a damn thing because I'm being blinded by the sun through the window. They usually don't put studio windows facing the sun. Never a good idea. Just saying. Welcome to the program. Glad to be back for another Scream Kicking week. What's a Scream Kicker? I don't know. I think I just made that up on the spot. Looking forward to the Hash Bash coming up on Saturday. So it's less than a week away. And so we've got some announcements coming up about the Hash Bash. Some exciting ones at that. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. But save it for later because that's a stash we're not digging out until, maybe halfway, three-quarters of the way through the show. You got to keep the palate wanting, as it were. And plus, I'm just a big tease. So there you go. Big announcement coming up on the Hash Bash. Now, also, crap that's been going on. Where do I even begin? Well, first off, there's been all kinds of crap going on just here locally. And a lot of it we've been talking about, some of it on the air, but, a lot of it I haven't been talking about. And I think I did mention sometime last week that there's been some local last-minute grabbing going on. And actually, there's been some hands-on police activity in traditional hands-off places. And what I mean by that is there are some cities in this state that have granted permission via licensing through ordinances to allow for the medical distribution of marijuana to cannabis patients through a dispensary. Even though the state law says that dispensaries aren't talked about in the act and there is no protection for them, there's no existence for them, and you can close them down as a nuisance, some places have chosen not to do that. Now, also, even though state police, who are controlled by the governor and the attorney general directly, have the opinion that the attorney general, who, remember, in this state is the chief opponent to marijuana, that we hired at the same time we enacted the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act, which is crazy notion of all notions. In what world does that happen? I don't know. In what state does that happen here? So that's what's happened there. And then the local police are not governed that way. See, now the local police, there's only two other kinds of local police. You got the county police, which would be the sheriff's departments in each county. So there's a sheriff of each county, right? And it's not like the sheriff of Boss Hog days of old, Dukes of Hazzard style, where, if you're in this county and it's a dry county and you get across the county line, the sheriff puts on the brakes and screeches at the county line because now you're over in another county and you can't touch me from over here, you piggy pig, pig, pig. It doesn't work that way. Some of that works some of that way in other places. It doesn't work that way here. Mostly that is a bunch of Hollywood hogwash. No pun intended. Okay, pun intended. Now, because the local police are under local control, right? The direct employer of the local police, and I'm not talking about the sheriff's department, I'm talking about your municipal police, your township police, your city police. Those are controlled by your local township, city, or municipality. And in those places where they've gone ahead and said, you know what, state, screw you. We don't care about the fact that there's no mention in the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act about these things. And we don't care that the Attorney General thinks that we ought not have a dispensary. We think that this is the best way to handle this situation is to take control of it, make sure kids aren't getting access to it, making sure we put it in a place where we like it to be, both from a standpoint of accessibility and also now we know where all the activity's happening at, right? And we get some licensing money for this, and we're putting it in an area that needed some refurbishment anyway, so we're actually rebuilding an area that didn't, have any business at all before. And now because we got a new magnet there, there's some support businesses nearby that are either opening up or doing well now because of the added attraction of this magnet. And so screw you. And you know what? Our local police, although they have the ability, and you want to say it's a duty under state law, to write under state code on a crime, to charge somebody under state code, because here locally, our local police that we've hired, that we're employing at the city level, have an ordinance in place that says either marijuana is the lowest law enforcement priority, meaning you got to do everything else on your possibility to-do list before you start going after a marijuana crime, or that there is a dispensary ordinance in place and there's licensing. And so leave the marijuana people alone, let the city control all that. If we need to send the police in there, the city council, I'm sure, would have the opportunity to do that, and probably would. But absent that, leave them alone. Don't be going in there and writing them under state code. Leave them alone. The policy is they're licensed, and until there's an issue, leave them alone. Now, even though that's the case, and the county now still has jurisdiction there. See, that city still lies within the county, you see. And even though the city police aren't taking any action because they've got direct orders to hands off on them, the county police and also the state police have jurisdiction in that area. That means that's their area to police as well. Ha, 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 ha. There's this one little thin blue line unwritten rule that says police are going to govern locally. Starts local. This is how the police have decided to how to treat matters amongst themselves, even though they all have equal jurisdiction. See, in the instance that I'm talking about, the city police, the county police, and the state police all have jurisdiction over charging this guy with a crime, this guy that's running a dispensary in the city. Or this entity, whatever the entity is. Or there's people inside the dispensary, however they want to do it. They all have jurisdiction to do that. But because the local city police have an ordinance they're living under and a dictate to leave them alone, the thin blue line rule falls on the merits that local control takes precedent. And that means that the county police and the state police are not going to cross the lines of the city's turf and go in there under their jurisdictional authority without the consent and advice of the local police. In other words, stay out unless we invite you. And if you try to come here without us inviting you, you're going to be not only breaking our, unwritten police rule and causing chaos amongst police departments over the same issue in many different instances, not just a dispensary instance. I mean, this could be over anything. Are they going to fight over jurisdiction now? Because, see, this is why they have this rule. Local control takes precedent. They've got control locally. If they want the county in, they'll ask them. If they want the state in, they'll ask them. I'm sure they would come to their aid. If they want another adjacent police department outside the county and the state police to come in and help them, I'm sure they would come to their aid. But they're not going to do it unless and until the city's made approval. Now, they could do it anyways under one circumstance, and that would be under direct order of the Attorney General. And the police would fight him tooth and nail for doing that. It would be a very unpopular thing to do to order them to go in there. Can you understand what a conflict of interest that would cause? I mean, the police have this unwritten rule for a reason, to create order out of chaos. Because it is a chaotic theory to believe that 3 different police departments should have control over a jurisdiction. That's a little bit chaotic. So there should be some order, some process, some rules in place to dictate who has first call on this. And it's always the local police. So this gives a great place for the city, through their police department and city council and activism within the city, trying to engage those departments to create some safe space for them, for safe access for patients, and a place where caregivers can conduct their business with their patients in an appropriate public venue. Because when you bring a patient caregiver model online and all this activity is being done at either the patient's house or the caregiver's house, it could be potentially dangerous. These are private quarters, not always people that you know extremely well. And even though you're doing this for medical purpose, there's no reason to say that because you're bringing medical cannabis as a caregiver over to your patient's premises, who happens to be a cancer patient mother, that one of those kids who might be adults might find out that you're bringing medical cannabis there, and because they're strung out on something else, or because they've got some other issue or problem, because they're just plain screwed up, wouldn't decide to try and rob you. Or steal from your car while you're inside taking care of their mother. And I'm just drawing a scenario because this is the truth of the matter. This is why it's not always great to do these things in one place or the other as it relates to the patient or the caregiver. It should be done most safely in a public place, in a building designed for that purpose, that's secure, where there are other people around. You have to worry about that kind of crap. But you do have to worry about is the police breaking down the damn door. You see, they'll do that anyways. And I'll give you some examples of where they're doing it, how they're doing it, and why they're doing it. This happened in Gaylord, Michigan. Up there, if you look at the Mitten State and you go up towards the middle finger, towards the top of the middle finger, they're like about half an hour before the Mackinac Bridge going into the UP. That's Gaylord. They did it there not only once, but they did it twice. More coming up after the break.
You're getting the full melt.
If you're like us, your pets aren't just animals. They're members of your family. Pet Pain CBD hemp oil drops are great for aging as well as active dogs and cats. Some people are apprehensive about hemp treatments for pets. They ask us, what are you smoking? Absolutely nothing, and neither will your pet. Like other hemp-based products for humans, the allure is all of the benefits of cannabis without any of the high. The CBD oil has shown to rejuvenate the bones, joints, brain, stomach, eyes, and heart. And the drops contain absolutely no corn, wheat, soy, artificial colors and flavors, or preservatives. Pick some up today. Visit petpain.com or ask for Pet Pain at your local pet store. Petpain.com. CBD relief for your pet.
When you need legal help, you don't want to guess at who's standing next to you in court. And when it comes to a medical marijuana defense, it's even smarter to partner with a lawyer before you need one. Based in Royal Oak, David Rudoy has a proven history of not being afraid to take your case all the way to the Supreme Court and win. Find the law offices of Rudoy Law
at RudoyLaw.com.
RudoyLaw.com is a quick reference on your rights concerning Michigan medical marijuana
and up-to-date news.
That's RUDOI Law.com. Call 248-935-9074 now and talk about your legal needs, because at RudoyLaw.com, we don't just stand up for you, we stand up with you.
What's up with these things, Victor?
We decided to give ourselves stickers for each feature we release.
We read about 10,000 suggestions a week to create features that, as traders, we'd want to use.
10,000 suggestions. Who reads all of those?
He does.
For all the confidence you need, TD Ameritrade, you got this.
We need coffee.
Got it right here.
Cups.
12 ounce, 8 ounce recyclable.
Creamers, sweeteners, stirrers, filters.
Creamers, sweeteners, stirrers, filters, K-cups.
Hazelnut, French vanilla, French roast, dark, light, medium, bold, extra bold.
And decaf.
Why would you say that? Why would you say that? Why would you say that?
No reason.
Free shipping for awards members every day. Staples, make more happen.
It's the Full Melt Radio Show.
Radio show.
You know, you can hear us Monday through Friday from 7 until 8 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm Steve Green, your host, and you can find us on iTunes. Just go to thefullmelt.com, find the iTunes link right there at the top of the page. Click and subscribe. Just that easy.
Tried once, messed up.
So talk about how they're getting around the law, how they're getting around that thin blue line. Well, it's really a thin gray line between the people in the thin blue line. I'll reiterate. Multi-jurisdictional acquisition targeting. At least you've got multi-jurisdictional access to any given city or township, or you got all three. You got the township, or you got the local municipality, whatever it is, whatever form it is, and then you got the county, and then you got the state, and they all have jurisdiction. And there's a written agreement, an unwritten agreement, I should say. I should more properly say unwritten agreement that local control takes control. You can't have the county or the state coming in, or even any other local police departments around the fringe, coming in and handling a situation in your jurisdiction without your approval, consent, or advice. Or at least knowledge. I mean, they could do it, but they're not going to do it per this unwritten agreement. And again, the idea here is a noble one. It's to create order out of chaos, because it's chaotic, right? Too much jurisdictional access. Who's going to do it? Who's got control? If it's an authority, which authority is it? They've all, as far as we're concerned, they're all cops. But amongst themselves, who is it that gets to take control? Ultimately, the state could take it away from everybody. And ultimately, the FBI could take it away from them. But as far as the local investigation goes, on the local level, at the state level, it has to be the local police have the authority first. Now, they could say, the other organizations could come together and say, you know, we've been conducting an investigation, and part of our investigation has revealed that inside of your township there's this thing going on. So as a part of our larger investigation, we need to come in and conduct a search warrant or do some further investigating that requires our presence in your jurisdiction, requires police action, it might require some arresting. We're going to need to come in and do this because of our larger investigation and the nexus, the ties to all that stuff. That might happen, but at least you're going to call the township or the local municipality and say, this is what we're doing and why. Be aware of our presence and why, so that they're not violating that rule. At least you know what we're doing, what we're here for, and why. And if you've got argument with us, you can take it up with us on the phone or in private quarters or, side to side in a police car on the side of a road somewhere instead of, at the scene. Because it doesn't look very good when the authorities are arguing with each other about who's the authority. So that's why they have that rule. Now, how are they getting around this rule? Because they are. Well, there's one other way that they could do you some busting at the local level. And that is with what they call a multi-jurisdictional county task force. So what that means is that several organizations, several law enforcement organizations from many different jurisdictions have pooled together to cover their entire area to put together a special task force designed for the policing of certain laws, in this case, drug laws. So they get a multi-jurisdictional task force going around and enforcing drug laws in all these areas. So they all have a component, a piece, a person or set of people or resources that are being contributed to this collective, and then also people. So there's somebody or people from each of these jurisdictions in the task force. And those are the people that comprise the task force. Now, the task force, because it's comprised of many jurisdictions, kind of doesn't fit the thin blue line rule anymore, does it? And also because it's a task force, it's not a particular police organization, it also doesn't fit the rule. So that's what they're doing right now. That's the wiggle room they found. See if there's even a glimmer of light for them to squeeze through like little mice in the darkness of night. Or a bat underneath a shingle or a wooden slat. There's any little tiny crack of light coming through there, watch out because those vermin are coming through. I'm sorry, I really, it actually leaves a bit of a sour taste in my American-hearted mouth to refer to the police as vermin. But in this case, that's exactly what they're being. You know, and there's proof in my pudding. I don't just say these things and have no evidence behind them. And if I didn't wholeheartedly believe it from evidence before my own eyes, not third hand, not that somebody told me, not hearsay, not some crap I read on a blog or on some damn website, but stuff that I had for my own consumption in person. If I didn't actually have tons and tons of that sitting in my lap showing exactly how corrupt police forces are, and even the remaining threads that tie the police to the rest of our government. Townships, counties, state. It's just sickening. And so in this case, in this example, I'm going to call the people that I'd like to consider my protectors and servers, the people that I can rely upon for assistance and help when trouble is afoot, because that's what police are there for. Not to be digging around about substance in pocket and come ramming through the doors like knights of shining armor as so many, terrorists in masks and gloves. I mean, if you look at them, they're dressed just like the guys from the ISIS clans. If you think about it, that's what they look like when they come through the door. You couldn't notice them any different from being the guy who was cutting the throats of those American and other citizens abroad in those desert films, making U.S. demands, and then when they don't get them, cut their heads off. Their actions are no less noble and no more noble. They're purely shitty. And again, we're not talking about instances where people are coming in and breaking down the door and finding or conducting search warrants and finding drug labs, methamphetamine, manufacturing. That's not the kind of stuff we're talking about here, that we're arguing about here. And frankly, if the government had the cojones, the balls, to take control of all illicit drugs, and rather than treat them as a criminal justice matter, treat them as a social health, a social welfare matter, because that's really truly what it is, dealt with it more realistically instead of from a punitive place, then things would be a lot better. And none of this other stuff would matter and wouldn't go on, but they wouldn't have those kind of places anyways. Nobody be manufacturing methamphetamines out of Sudafed in some garage somewhere with volatile and explosive chemicals that are toxic and will leave the place destined for a toxic cleanup site. Because you got to look like, you just discovered E.T. With the masks and the gloves and the chemical warfare suits and the big bubble globes that you're breathing oxygen through. I mean, that's the kind of containment environment you have to be in to clean those places up. They wouldn't exist if people were making them in a regular laboratory and making them available to those people who are choosing to abuse them anyways, because those people aren't going away. And then at least you know where they're at, how much they're getting, and they're getting it in an environment and in an amount that's not going to be as risky as it is out on the street the way you've got it now. And you've got the money to spend in those places for those things and for the cleanup at the other end, because you're not spending it on prohibition and putting them in jail at public expense. But that's a whole nother story. You don't have these kinds of places out there that they're busting. The vast majority of these kinds of situations, at least in this state, and I know in most others as well, are the low-hanging fruit is marijuana. That's where all the money's at for the cops, because it's also where the least amount of threat is. There's fewer people with guns in the marijuana. And now occasionally you get marijuana mixed in with other drug dealers who are doing other drugs. But again, you wouldn't have that problem either if you stopped treating drugs as being illicit, as contraband. You can discourage them. You're not going to make the people who've got the money to acquire them go away. And you're not going to make the pathway to getting them go away either. It would have happened now. If it was going to happen in the last century, it would have happened by now. And if it was going to happen in the next century, it would have happened by now. It's not going to stop. There's always a couple inches to a mile ahead of the people trying to chase them down or to stop it. It's also unenforceable from the standpoint of money. There's not enough money. We don't have enough money to throw at all the leaky holes in this colander. I mean, if the object was, if you're going to compare the drugs seeping across the border to the holes in a colander, the only way that it makes sense to go after plugging the holes in the colander is if indeed you are able to and can afford to successfully plug all the holes in the colander so it's no longer a colander but now a bowl. It's a barrier. Right? It's a vessel now. It is not porous anymore. If you can't do that, then you've wasted your money. If you can only plug 5 or 6 holes at a time and the rest of it, the water still pours through, what's the point in spending that effort? In this case, they're spending hundreds to tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars on plugging 1 or 2 holes. They're spending millions of dollars trying to plug a few holes. And the rest of the colander leaks. Because it's never become a bowl and it's never going to because there's not enough money to throw at all those holes. And I don't think that they've got the capability of patching all those holes watertight anyway. And then certainly you're going to cause a whole different problem too because the demand hasn't gone away and that's not going to happen either. People with money got an ability, they're going to find a way. And now you don't even need the bowl anymore because they're finding some other method. Assuming you could even do that. So it's expensive, it's ineffective, let's deal with it another way. But now drawing that line back to these different police forces, the multi-jurisdictional task forces are going in and saying, you know what, because we're connected to a higher string of law enforcement that goes back to the state and the attorney general and the county, and the county sheriff's association, which, or sheriff's associations, which are tied together. Are still disagree with cannabis law because it's still low-hanging fruit and cash flow money to them. I mean, this is a revenue stream. And we're not going to do anything or we're not going to allow anything to happen to impede that stream. There's no beavers barking up this dam. There's nobody plugging that stream. There's nobody going to create a pool behind a dam. The flow keeps coming, and it goes one way, and it's directly into our pocket. That's where it goes. Nobody gets anything. You stay away from the damn river. Get away under threat of arrest. That money is ours. It's coming our way. Leave it alone. That's the messaging here. So they're going in with these multi-jurisdictional task forces. That's where they did in Gaylord. They went up there and started conducting these investigations and working their way in just like a local normal police organization would do, or just like the county, or just like the state would do. But they're getting away with crossing the thin gray dashed line that goes between the people in the thin blue line. They're stepping over that no boundary anyways and getting away with it for now. But not for much longer. Couple things going on. First off, we are midway through what I believe is one of the most politically active drug policy cycles in history. That meaning, and this leans 98% marijuana, that cannabis policy and therefore, I think maybe the way we view drug policy as a whole is beginning to wane. And it's getting thin walls. And the just say no walls that were built during the 1980s no longer can contain the bullshit that they held inside. And that bullshit is toxically eating through those walls. And it's all about to come crumbling down. Because the younger generation, particularly, has never bought into the just say no mentality. It used to be that you could feed a lot of younger people a lot of this kind of message, especially in the 50s and the 60s. And that message would stick to the side of their head and be ingrained in the walls of their brain like a thick macaroni and cheese stuck to your ribs. It would just sit there. It would be readily taken in and accepted, consumed in whole without question as to what it was or from whence it came, and become part of and entrenched in everyday normal use. And then came along the 60s. And there were some vastly different views about how things needed to be. But this is before the big control happened with 1971 and Richard Nixon saying, nope, the hippies / drug culture, the free love people, all the guys wearing the tie-dye and the cut-off shorts and hippie mentality, hanging out in the woods and making free love and all that stuff. It's going to poison us. It's tearing apart the fabric of America, is the way that this man thought. Mind you that these are only maybe, 5% tops of the adults in society at the time, that the rest were still the same button-down, normal, plain Jane and Joe Americans they always have been. She saw this fringe of unusual and different thinking people as a threat to the fabric of society. And that's why, you look right back in the Nixon tapes, it'll tell you that's why they did the Controlled Substance Act. And that's why cannabis was listed as the worst, the chief, the number one category of drugs that you can't have because they're so dangerous and they're so toxic to Americans. And this was his way of controlling that political impetus at the time. Because if those people were into that and he made that illegal and he made it so illegal federally that you could go after it and put somebody like John Sinclair in jail for giving 2 joints to an undercover officer for 2 years, well, then you've got some political power, don't you? Now you've undermined the political thoughts and efforts of those who might oppose you. And that's plain treasonous, if you ask me. And because big business has always been aligned to stand by, because this works for them. This works really well for them. It always has. It started with them. This was only underpinning it, underscoring it, propping it up. So they stood idly by and let this become entrenched. It's all now about to come tumbling down, and we'll talk about more about that after the break.
You're getting the full melt.
I've seen things no man should bear, and those that every man should dare. From the beaches of Normandy to the far reaches of the earth. In my life, I have lived millions of lives. I've outrun robots and danced with dinosaurs. I've faced the faces of fear and fortitude and witnessed great beauty in the making. I've kept the company of kings and queens, but I'm no royalty or saint. I've traveled, trekked, wandered, and roamed, only to find myself right where I belong.
Jeep. See your authorized Jeep retailer for details on how you can become a Jeep owner.
We asked people to tell us something that happened in their past and something that might happen in their future. The good things were put on yellow magnets and the bad ones on blue. The results show the past was a pretty even mix of good and bad, yet the future was almost all good things. Now that you've seen the results of this experiment, what does it mean to you?
We all want to think about positive stuff.
Realistically, there will be down times.
It's great to think optimistically, but let's plan for whatever the future might bring.
Prudential, bring your challenges.
RootMetrics, in the nation's largest independent study, tested wireless performance across the country. Verizon won big with 153 state wins. AT&T got 38, Sprint got 2, and T-Mobile got 0. Verizon also won first in the U.S. for data, call, speed, and reliability. AT&T got text. Stuck on an average network? Join Verizon, and we'll cover your cost to switch.
Introducing
Sacred Elements.
a place for natural and alternative healing for the mind, body, and soul.
Sacred Elements.
It's one place, all solutions.
Registered, licensed, certified, ordained.
Sacred Elements.
Massage, hypnosis, Reiki,
Sacred Elements.
raindrop, aroma and color therapy, body detox, ministry, life coaching, weight and nutrition counseling.
Sacred Elements.
Next to the Sweet Leaf, 400 South Dorr Highway, Flint.
11 to 7 daily, closed Sunday.
Call 810-259-2570.
Hey, it's Steve Green for the Sweet Leaf in Flint, because now getting safe access to medical cannabis patients in Flint, Michigan is never more welcoming. Presenting the Sweet Leaf, a brand new patient experience bringing 12 carefully selected caregivers housed in 9 separate offices to distinctly assist you with their knowledge and reputation for excellent patient care. Classes and training coming soon in the large community room. Check it out in person, 400 South Dorr Highway, or call 810-259-2571. The Sweet Leaf Center in Flint, 810-259-2571. It's the Full Melt Radio Show.
Radio show.
Thomas says stay home, get away from me, saying I was bad for you. He got his way.
Ain't putting that genie back in the bottle.
Good.
It ain't happening.
Making up stories, keeping
He's fat and he's smelly and he's got a tie-dye on. Tie-dye shirt. I think it's a wife beater.
still sober.
Listen, this whole business about marijuana. Well, why has it got to be such a business? Why? Oh, God. Damn Harry Anslinger. If it wasn't for him taking over the old federal police that were beating down the doors of the alcohol people during the days of Prohibition and converting them from that into the new pot police, and to go after whatever else might fall under the crazy world of things other than alcohol. Other substances that weren't alcohol. Let's go look at all those things. Alcohol is just one. We can go after all these other ones. And they did. And then they found money for it. And then they found popular support for it from their business friends, because this created new places. I mean, DuPont came along and said, yay, now we can create rayon and nylon and make other fabrics and textiles out of oil and oil products. And the oil people said, yay, DuPont's developing new stuff for our oil products. Petroleum industry loved this idea. And the people like, the yellow journalist. Who was the big yellow journalist? The Hearst Corporation. Oh, yeah, the Hearsts. Remember Patty Hearst robbing a bank in the 70s? The Symbionese Liberation Army and all that crap? Her daddy was a big newspaper guy, and he basically had hometown newspapers that were the equivalent of the National Enquirer. And he syndicated crazy, wild stories about bullshit everywhere, and half of it wasn't true. Or it was watered down with so much inflated make-believe crap. But it was sensational. And it sold newspapers. He made a lot of money that way selling these lies. Creating a lot of strife for other people. Yellow journalism days. It's all tied back into the whole era of Prohibition. And then also rolling into the days of Harry Anslinger. So he loved this because he had all these newspapers, and all those newspaper presses were very, very hungry for paper pulp. And, hey, what's a natural competitor with paper pulp? Well, gosh, if you're going to grow a tree, it takes forever to grow a tree, 20, 30 years to grow a nice, sizable tree, to get some lumber out of it and some paper pulp. And, you can only grow so many trees in an acre. Each tree takes up a lot of space to grow. And so, you get maybe let's just take, for example, if you could get, maybe 20 trees in an acre, and they'd have to grow for approximately, 20 years or maybe 30 years to get to a size where it's worth harvesting. And then you go and you cut that stuff down, and now you got to wait 20 or 30 or more years for paper pulp. But see, Hearst had already got all of his money invested into those wooden paper pulp companies. And so, now people start doing the cannabis thing. People are growing a lot of hemp and cannabis, hemp for victory, fields and fields of hemp. Oh, well, you can grow 2. And if you're in the South or in the West, 3 and 4 crops of hemp every year. And they'll grow, taller than your 2-story house. Big, tall fields of hemp straight into the sky. Times 3 or 4 crops every year. And instead of getting 20 plants, you're getting tens of thousands of plants in that same acre. Maybe even hundreds of thousands of hemp plants in that same acre. In fact, it's so thick with hemp plants, there's no wasted space. So you got all that space between those trees. Because of the canopies, they can't interfere with each other. They got to be spaced apart for growing. This isn't happening with the hemp fields. And you know what? The trees are going to deplete eventually the ground of earthly supplies. Some of it's going to come back from the leaves, coming down and, getting composted back into the ground as forests always do. But they're going to deplete the earth of its resources. Nothing really good is going to get added back except for those leaves, and eventually through composting will contribute back to the organic nature of the soil. But everything else is being leached out of it by those trees. I mean, yeah, they're holding together the soil, but here's the bigger thing. The hemp plants are actually contributing back to the nutritional value of that soil for other plants. So it's great for crop rotation. Look, this, was great for the farmers, but bad for the businessmen. And so they loved that's why they lumped hemp in with the cannabis crowd. If you're going to get cannabis sativa, you might as well get the whole genus and species. Don't leave out the stuff that can't get you high. I mean, we're only using the idea that you can get high from some of this stuff, but this stuff, even though it can't really get you high, let's include that too, because really that's the big issue here. How can we control people and make money? That's what we're after. We want to be racist, especially in the South, where the law says we can't. And how can we do that? Well, let's enforce cannabis policy on the darker skinned people of the world. If you happen to be a person of color, and we don't like you where we're at, we can't discriminate you anymore against you anymore based on changing times. They changed. The Civil War happened, no more slavery, and people, black folks started coming up in the world, and that threatened some of them white folk. People of color from other nations. The Hispanics of the world, the Asians of the world, they're moving in on us. We don't want them taking up our white women and making zebra babies. I mean, that was the thought of the day. That's how they started with this. And it still is like this in some places. Believe it or not, it still is. Let's repress that population. Let's preserve our white heritage through this new form of discrimination, this Jim Crow world. And it worked. And so today, I saw, and this is a local story, it made the national list of stories in the news about marijuana. My friend David Overholt is in a picture that was taken earlier this year with medical marijuana he was growing. It's actually a really good picture. This is from mlive.com. Medical marijuana patients increasing in Michigan, and 5 other facts. Interesting story here. So you've got this background I just gave you, and the problem going on with people in Gaylord. It's not just in Gaylord. They're doing this in other places, too. They did it in Kalamazoo. There was, I'm not sure, I haven't followed through with what might have happened in Ann Arbor. There was a sound like something was going on in Ann Arbor. I know they did some of this in Genesee County and Flint. I think I've heard about some of this going on in Lansing, and I definitely know some of this has been going on in Detroit. These multi-jurisdictional task forces, and in some cases just outright the Detroit police, but we've never trusted them. I mean, you would trust sooner Brad Pitt in bed with your wife before you would trust a policeman here. That's how bad it's gotten. That's how disenfranchised people have become with their police, because police have taken this notion on that it's somehow them against us. They put the uniform on and somehow they're special. And it's us against them now. It's no longer about them protecting us as a part of us, because that's who they are. They're a part of us. They're civilians. They are civilian police. They're not the military. They like to think they're military, though. They like to go in without being military, strap on military gear, and play cops and robbers. And that's what they do. They get to play both. I'm a cop and a robber. It's no longer about me making sure you're okay, making sure that you're not hurt, making sure that this person isn't injuring that person, or that guy's not getting his rights damaged by that guy. or girl. That's not what it is anymore. It's about how much money can I target from my passersby that I can tax collect for my local municipality or for the state or for the county. Terrible chest cold. 'Tis the time of the year. That's what they've turned into. Glorified tax collectors and thugs with badges. I'm not besmirch. I mean, they're doing the besmirching of their own reputation and their current history of brave things that they do, like saving people from burning cars, like stopping people from being hurt when they do. But it's not what they're focused on anymore. That's more the exception than the rule. The rule is now, how much money can we get out of you for the prosecutor? How much money can we get out of you for the city or the county or the state or all of them if we can get it all? How many charges can we levy against you that are full of shit to pressure you into giving up your rights to a trial on this one or two that we really just don't want to have to prove? Are you aware that 95% of the people in jail and prison today, 95% of them gave up their rights to a trial? People are just allowing themselves to be locked away for decades in some cases by plea bargain. I think the idea of plea bargain in and of itself should be illegal. There needs to be a new constitutional amendment. Plea bargaining of any form in the criminal justice system is in and of itself corrupt and will not be tolerated, because it completely disassembles the intent and effort of a jurisprudence system in any country, especially this one, the way that we're set up, being that we're leaders here. We're going to give up the rights and mechanisms employed by the Constitution by stipulation, by agreement, and most of it over a concocted, made-up threat by a zealous prosecutor. So I'm going to tell you about this story that I saw today. And this really is about not only temperature, it's not only about the way that people in Michigan feel about this, but also some other things that they're doing about it. And these things mirror efforts going on across the United States today. We'll tell you more about this MLive story coming up.
You're getting the full melt.
Promotional consideration provided by NoSmell.com, pioneering the storage market for cannabis users. The No-Smell patented bag technology offers users 100% smell-proof detection from even the most sophisticated of noses. NoSmell.com, so nobody knows. When placing your order for a No-Smell bag, make sure to use discount code FULLMELT and take 10% off the entire order. Learn more about No-Smell technology at NoSmell.com.
Young students are our future. They're eager to learn, eager to succeed, eager to make the world a better place. And they want to make it to school safely. Share the road, take care when passing, and always leave 3 feet between you and people on bikes. Bikes are legal road vehicles. We're all drivers.
When you need legal help, you don't want to guess at who's standing next to you in court. And when it comes to a medical marijuana defense, it's even smarter to partner with a lawyer before you need one. Based in Royal Oak, David Rudoy has a proven history of not being afraid to take your case all the way to the Supreme Court and win. Find the law offices of Rudoy Law
at RudoyLaw.com.
RudoyLaw.com is a quick reference on your rights concerning Michigan medical marijuana
and up-to-date news.
That's RUDOI Law.com. Call 248-935-9074 now and talk about your legal needs, because at RudoyLaw.com, we don't just stand up for you, we stand up with you.
If you're like us, your pets aren't just animals. They're members of your family. Pet Pain CBD hemp oil drops are great for aging as well as active dogs and cats. Some people are apprehensive about hemp treatments for pets. They ask us, what are you smoking? Absolutely nothing, and neither will your pet. Like other hemp-based products for humans, the allure is all of the benefits of cannabis without any of the high. The CBD oil has shown to rejuvenate the bones, joints, brain, stomach, eyes, and heart. And the drops contain absolutely no corn, wheat, soy, artificial colors and flavors, or preservatives. Pick some up today. Visit petpain.com or ask for Pet Pain at your local pet store. Petpain.com. CBD relief for your pet.
Hey, it's Steve Green for the Sweet Leaf in Flint, because now getting safe access to medical cannabis patients in Flint, Michigan is never more welcoming. Presenting the Sweet Leaf, a brand new patient experience bringing 12 carefully selected caregivers housed in 9 separate offices to distinctly assist you with their knowledge and reputation for excellent patient care. Classes and training coming soon in the large community room. Check it out in person, 400 South Door Highway, or call 810-259-2571. The Sweet Leaf Center in Flint, 810-259-2571. 571. It's the Full Melt Radio Show.
Radio show.
All right, I promised you I would give you some special announcements on the Hash Bash. So if you hadn't heard, if you're out here in the Michigan area, and you haven't heard about the Hash Bash, first off, what rock are you living under? And then, because it's 41 years now, it's been going on. Big event happening April 2. Starts at noon. It generally goes about 90 minutes. Might even be 2 hours long. I don't know. 90 minutes is a long time. That's the protest itself over on the Diag at the University of Michigan campus, downtown in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And across the street, over there, Monroe Street, right there on city property, where you can smoke cannabis and nobody gives a damn. Freely out there in public, right out there in the open, walking down the street, going from booth to booth, cannabis, people doing all kinds of their cannabis, favorite cannabis, various methods, sundry forms, openly consumed with reckless abandon. And it's this magical special time known as the Monroe Street Fair, immediately following the Hash Bash, April 2, and that will go immediately following the bash, and immediately following the protest, right across the street until 6 p.m. sharp. At which time, the city of Ann Arbor expects, by order of the end of their permit for the entire escapade and affair, to collapse, fall apart, and be cleaned up, not to be referenced again until March of the following year, when it all repeats itself in a glorious bloom. And so that's going on. We're excited about it. And what's going on out there? Well, last year, Tommy Chong came to town. Oh, I don't have time to play all the Tommy Chong stuff. I'll play some tomorrow. Tommy Chong came to town because he was doing some stuff for Hazel Park's BDTs and then all the other BDTs. He was showing up there doing, they brought him out to do some signing. I think he signed everything from memorabilia and albums and shirts to boobs. I think he signed some boobs. And so he had a lot of fun doing that. And he also spoke at last year's Hash Bash. I think he was the big kahuna out there at the Bash last year. The big attraction. They always bring somebody out. A couple of years ago it was Steve D'Angelo. I mean, they've had Keith Strout from Normal, the National Normal. But this year, Tommy's coming back. And so I anticipate we will have him on this very program with an interview, a live interview, sometime later on, early this week. So the early part of this week, maybe tomorrow or perhaps Wednesday. If it gets too late, it could be Thursday. But we'll have him on the show by phone. And then out at the Hash Bash, Tommy Chong, that's right, has his own booth. So you can catch up with him at the BDTs in Roseville and Hazel Park and other places. I don't know if he's going to. You have to check the BDT's website to find out when and where, because I'm not. Don't quote me at which ones. But it seems like he's going to be out there doing some of those events on Friday, and then Saturday he's got his own booth, so you can do the same thing in Ann Arbor, getting signatures and pictures, and of course you got to pay for all that stuff. That's how Tommy makes a living. It's part of what he does to make a living. So he's got his own booth, and we're going to be interviewing him. I'm thinking perhaps from a resting place I think we got a special smoking accommodation place for Tommy to go when he's in between book signings. Does he have a book? I don't know. I know he's got other stuff. But we're going to go there and do some interviewing live during the Hash Bash. And also, we're trying to get Kyle Cushman on the show. The Grow Show's Kyle Cushman. Both of these guys got their own radio shows. That's badass and awesome. And they're going to be on this show later this week and on Saturday. So we're doing a bonus show this Saturday at the Hash Bash. It'll start probably sometime right before noon so that we can get in all the... We'll do the live broadcast, first time ever, from the protest this year, and then run across the street and pick up the show from the Monroe Street Fair. For the Monroe Street, it's called the Monroe Street Fair. Some people call it a festival. It's really I guess it's technically the fair. And that will go on until 6 p.m., at which time we'll do hopefully a Kyle Cushman interview and another interview from Tommy Chong. And so looking forward to all that. What great fun it's going to be. Now, right now, it says that the weather is going to be a little less than favorable, like a 40% chance of rain and like chilly, like 46 degrees. I'm hoping that pendulum will swing a little bit and push the cold day off Saturday and push it into Sunday or Monday, or the other way around, get the cold days out of the way first so it's a little bit warmer. We'll see what happens, but as it gets closer, more likely is it's going to be somewhere in that rainy/chilly neighborhood. But it's not going to, I don't think it's going to push down attendance. People have spring fever like you wouldn't believe. Back to this story with my friend David Overholt. It's on the front page picture. It's the picture of the story, rather. It's not a front page story. MLive is a publication online made up of many local publishers. As multiple campaigns to collect signatures necessary to get a measure to legalize the use of recreational marijuana in the 2016 ballot pushes on, the demand for medical marijuana keeps growing. In 2008, Michigan voters approved making the use of medical marijuana available legally in the state. And since then, many local communities across Michigan have enacted measures that have both lessened the criminalization of the drug, while others have gone in the opposite direction to slow or block the availability of it. But through all that, the number of patients who have registered to receive marijuana, as well as the number of caregivers licensed to provide it, has grown. As a part of the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act of 2008, the Michigan Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs is required to submit an annual report of the number of patients and caregivers for each county. The dates are based on the fiscal calendar beginning October 1st and ending September 31st of the following year. Here are some of the takeaways from those annual reports, dating back to 2012. Excuse me. You can also use the searchable database to find out how many medical marijuana patients live in your particular county, so you can go to their website and look at that, and how and how that number has progressed since 2012. That database also has statistics on the number of caregivers, providers registered in each county in 2015. The total patients have grown over the last 4 years. For the 2012 fiscal year, the number of patients registered was 124,131 for all of Michigan. 4 years later, that number has risen to 182,091. So the addition of 60,000 patients, 58,000 patients. With that said, between 2013 and 2014, the number actually declined, bottoming out at 96,408 in 2014. Now, why could that be? Oh, could it be because the cops didn't care if you had your stupid card and nobody wanted the card anymore, which was the intention of the cops? Could it be that? I think it was. However, this came about during the initiation of a 2-year registry program and therefore does not reflect the total number of patients, only those that were required to apply that year. So that could be part of what that was. Number 2, the Northern Lower Peninsula has the highest concentration of medical marijuana patients per population. Oh, wow. There's no surprise there. At 42 patients per 1,000 residents, Montmorency County has the state's highest concentration of medical marijuana recipients, followed closely behind many of its neighboring counties, Kalkaska, Lake, Benzie, Roscommon, Aranac, Antrim. All counties in northern Lower Peninsula of Michigan are in the top 10 for most patients per 1,000 residents in Michigan. Number 3, and I might have to slow the progression of the end of the show just a tad so that I can squeeze all of this in, because we're running up on the end of the show here really quickly. Number 3, West Michigan sees the opposite. Although it's not as absolute as the northern lower peninsula's highest concentration, the largest counties in West Michigan have some of the state's fewest patients per capita. Kent and Ottawa counties are 81st and 82nd out of 83 counties in terms of number of patients per 1,000 residents at 12.2 and 11.7 respectively. Kalamazoo County with 14.2 per 1,000 residents is 79th. The more people in a community, the lower concentration of the patients. Wayne County is the most populated county in Michigan and logically has the highest number of registered medical marijuana patients with 24,949, nearly 25,000 patients. However, when adjusting for population, it has one of the lowest concentrations of patients per 1,000 residents at 14.7. That puts it at 7th, fewest in the state. Neighboring Oakland County, the second most populated county in Michigan, is only slightly higher with 15.7. Actually, it's 15.07 for 8th fewest. In fact, of the major counties in Michigan, only Genesee, 4th in population, ranks in the top 10 of the number of patients per 1,000 residents at 30.3. That's 9th highest in the state. The rest of the top 10 most populated counties all fall in the lower half of the statewide ranking of the number of patients per 1,000 residents. Number 5. With each annual report, Laura also enlists the condition provided to request access to marijuana. The condition most noted in requesting the drug is pain. Every year, the predominant reason for requesting a medical marijuana card is severe and chronic pain. In 2015, more than 90% of the applicants listed that as their reason for need. The only other condition to surpass 10% of the requests is severe pain and persistent muscle spasms. Here's the breakdown in conditions listed for receiving medical marijuana. The total percentages add up to more than 100% because in many cases, patients listed multiple conditions on their application. In order of their claim, severe and chronic pain, severe and persistent muscle spasms, so 92.86%, followed by 23.39%. Severe nausea, 8.9%. It's 8.95. Cancer, 4.47%. PTSD, 2.97%. Seizures, 2.12%. Hep C, 1.6%. Glaucoma, 1.45%. Crohn's disease, 1.11%. Wasting syndrome, 0.85%. Cachexia is 0.83%. HIV disease, 0.40%. So that's the HIV virus. AIDS, which is the condition caused by the HIV virus, and much less common, is 0.38%. Alzheimer's, 0.05%. ALS victims, 0.04%. Nail patella, 0.02%. And there you go. I mean, those are some fascinating statistics. And frankly, I'm going to save that list away. And I'm going to look and find out how many people in my county, now that I know that you can go look up and see the decline and incline of the number of patients in your county and the number of caregivers available to those patients in your county. Because it will be interesting to see, given the political circumstances being deployed or in common practice at the time, because this is going to vary drastically county to county. You're going to get some conservative counties in the most populated areas of medical marijuana really crack down. And you've seen some of that in the northern part of Michigan. In the southern part of Michigan, you're also going to see that in the conservative areas where there's very few people who need medical marijuana, according to these new statistics released by MLive today. And I'm not sure when the stats came out and how long it took them to crunch them. We'll see you tomorrow on the Full Melt program.
The Full Melt Show is a production of TFM Media.